In this video, I would like to demonstrate how the calibration is done on the jamming mixer and what you can do to change yours to a different ratio. Um, to make things easier, I removed the 6 VCA cards and we start with the calibration or adjustment of the return and the send lanes. And the first thing we do is we feed a signal of a known voltage. So you can use 1 volt or 2 volt into the return lanes. And then we figure out if we would like unity gain and where do we want unity gain to happen. So right now on the scope, you can see that we have around 1.5 volt in our return, and I'm feeding it with 1 volt. So I need to do some adjustments. The trimmer labeled return offset is the one that we will use for that. There's also return left and return right. These are for the symmetry. The same concept is applied on all the trimmers. There's always 3, 1 for the offset, and then 2 for the symmetry. Okay, so what we will do now is we will open our return all the way. So now, when the pot is being fully clockwise, I would like that my signal doubles in strength. So my result should then go up to 2 volt. So I'm using a Rigol DS1054 for that. Of course, not everyone has a scope, so you can either use a Mordex Data, if you're lucky enough to have one, or you can just use any audio scope that you can find in Bitwig or Live or Luna, whatever you use. The only important thing is that you need to know how much audio are you sending and how much audio are you getting back. Okay, you can not see that we have a blue and a yellow line on the scope, and that is because the symmetry is really good by default. But let me just show you what happens if I make the symmetry completely out of whack. So now you can see that we have a separation of the yellow line and the blue line. That means that one of those channels is like getting much more signal than the other one has. So let me undo that. The goal is that they are both very much alike, so we get a beautiful stereo image. We're doing this for every channel and all the signals before we send the module, so you don't have to. But if you notice that you have big differences in the left and the right channels of any of the lanes, these are the ones that are used for that. Okay, so now our return signal looks pretty okay. So the next thing we do is we dial it down so that we have unity gain. So the 1 volt that I'm sending in, I'm also getting that out. Okay, and now I will switch over to the send bus. And on the send bus, I also open it completely. I make sure that I'm switching to feedback mode, which means that the return signal is now going not only to the mains, but also going to the send output. And flip it over again. Okay, now the level is way too low. You can see we don't have much coming out, which means we need to change the offset here so that we're getting back to the 2 volt or the double gain that I decide I would like. You can change the gain, the maximum gain of your module to, for example, unity. And by doing so, you would match the input and the output exactly. So if you're going in with 1 volt, you want exactly 1 volt out. In my case, I want 2. Okay, symmetry looks fine, so I will not adjust that. Now I'll take a short break and I will repopulate the cards and we will go for the second part. All right. So in this next part, I will show you how to set up the VCA cards or really calibrate them if you want. We make sure that all our level pots in the main row are fully clockwise, and the same for the send lane. We will make sure that our send lane is at 12 o'clock. Same for the return lane. We already calibrated those, so we assume that they will be fine. Okay, so same thing. Have a signal where you know the level of, and feed it to the first channel input. Start the module. And now we have to make sure that we actually open our mute switch, because if not, no signal is coming through. Okay, so now we can see on the scope that we have a very unsymmetric signal, with one channel being almost okay and the other one too much, too high. Now that we are listening to our main outputs, we actually, so the first thing we should do is we need to make sure that our pan is centered. Okay, so, and this is kind of like an optical reference. If this is like at 12 o'clock and you can get to center, then everything is fine. If not, we need to adjust the symmetry. Okay, so we do this the exact same way. We look at the back of the module, and the first card is this one. And the first trimmer all the way on the top is our main gain. And that is the one that I need to adjust down now. Okay, the rule here is the same for my setup. I would like that I get double the signal out that I get in. So I'm aiming for 2-volt output and 1-volt input. The next trimmer would be the send output. We will do this in a second. And trimmer 3 and 4 are the symmetry trimmers for the main output. So if you start changing these, you should see that one channel is more emphasized than the other one. Same here. Please keep in mind, this is only necessary if you don't get too good results with the pen in the front, which you always should get, or if you decide that you would like your channel to be emphasized one side. All right. So this is how it looks for the first channel for the main output. And if we want to now calibrate, oops, the send, then we have to listen to this. And you can see that the signal is vastly smaller. Also, we have to make sure that we actually have our pre and post selector in the pre position. Post position means that the signal is actually relevant relative to what we already adjust here. But we don't want that. We want to skip that section. So now this has no effect. The signal goes straight into the send group. We're putting this to full. And we're adjusting the second trimmer. There's no pan adjustment. So this one really needs to be in symmetry. If not, same drill, just on there. You have control over the two sides of each channel. All right, this is basically the setup and calibration procedure that is necessary to achieve the gain that you want. Our idea was that the mixer has 3 gain stages. So every time you crank this to full, you double your signal. And if you have it on half, then what you get in is what you get out. So I will talk about how all of that works in a different video. This was only to show you how the trimmers work and where to adjust your gain if you would like to change it, and where to recalibrate the symmetry in case it's needed.